30 years ago, the Berlin Wall fell. The bricks and mortar along the Cold War's fault line crumbled as people rose up demanding freedom. Now, Berlin is an inspiring story, but does it translate beyond Europe's borders? Well, this young man says it already has. The activist Joshua Wong. His is the face of protests against the heavy hand of Chinese rule. Tonight, he is here in the German capital, and he tells me why Hong Kong is now the new Berlin. I'm Brent Goff in Berlin. This is The Day.
With yesterday's meeting with the Foreign Minister of Germany, I expressed the must for Germany government to send a clear message to President Xi.
It's wrong for German media and politicians to grab attention by staging a political show with anti-China separatists. It disrespects China's sovereignty and its interference in China's internal affairs.
Just like how no one could predict or imagine the Berlin Wall will fall or Soviet Union will collapse 3 decades ago, we have to let the dream come true and continue our fight.
Words, deeds and plots that seek foreign support to split the country will fail.
Also coming up, U.S. President Trump wanted to negotiate with the Taliban at Camp David. His national security advisor, John Bolton, did not. Bolton is now history. What about those Taliban talks?
They're dead. They're dead. As far as I'm concerned, they're dead. They thought that they had to kill people in order to put themselves in a little better negotiating position. You can't do that with me. So they're dead as far as I'm concerned.
On to our viewers on PBS in the United States and all around the world, welcome. We begin the day with the man from Hong Kong who refuses to accept a future made in China. 22-year-old Joshua Wong has become the face of Hong Kong's resistance against what many see as the creeping authoritarian reach of Beijing. He is leading a fight against what some say is the inevitable, that one day Hong Kong's special status within China will be no more. Well, Wong insists that Hong Kongers have a right to determine their own destiny. But in the eyes of Beijing, this is a dangerous dance with the notion of regime change. It has already gotten him arrested. Earlier this week, when he tried to board a plane to fly to Berlin, police detained him for 24 hours. Today, I spoke with Joshua Wong about his hopes for his home and why those hopes have brought him here to Berlin. Joshua Wong, you're here in Berlin, and you've said that Hong Kong is the new Berlin. What do you mean by that?
Under the authoritarian rule of President Xi Jinping, erode on Hong Kong's people autonomy and freedom, we strongly experienced the crackdown of human rights with police brutality, which similar as was experienced by people in Berlin in last century, also under authoritarian rule. That's the reason we hope people in Germany can stand with Hong Kong.
Standing with Hong Kong means what? Are you here asking for immigration policy to be changed for Hong Kongers coming to Germany?
How to review the current visa mechanism to welcome Hong Kong people that are under threat, that will be a good move and a good direction. But more important is we hope people in Germany and the Chancellor can show a strong stand to support Hong Kong's democratization. The ultimate and fundamental goal for us is to elect our own government. The leader of Hong Kong, which means chief executive, should be voted by us instead of handpicked by Beijing.
And let's say that happens. What happens after that?
Hong Kong people can finally be the master of their own house. We can determine our own future and destiny instead of dominated by Beijing authorities.
But what happens, Joshua, after the 50 years are over? You know, in 1997, there was this agreement made, you know, the two systems, one state, and that ends in 2047. What's your end game?
Beijing claimed that they allow Hong Kong people enjoy one country, two system after the transfer of sovereignty on 1997. But now it's not only result in 1.5 system, it's result in the collapse of one country, two system. After the 50 years unchanged policy ends, Our ultimate goal is allowing Hong Kong people to determine the political and economic status by our own will instead of dominated or controlled by Beijing.
But that you're asking China then not to have sovereignty over its own territory. And China has every right to say what it wants to do with this territory.
We're strongly aware Hong Kong is under the rule of Beijing. Hong Kong is part of China's territories. But it doesn't mean that destiny of Hong Kong people need to be manipulated and controlled by Beijing authorities. Hong Kong being recognized as the global city, we are the one willing and continue to fight for free election. And that's our persistence, and we hope to be the master of our own house. I know there's lots of hesitation and pressure, and people might say that will we be too naive or not pragmatic? But just like how no one could predict or imagine the Berlin Wall will fall or Soviet Union will collapse 3 decades ago, we have to let the dream come true and continue our fight.
Some people have said that Hong Kongers have more in common with New Yorkers and Londoners than they do with their own compatriots in China. Do you agree with that?
I'm strongly aware that we are not only seeking specific or single individual country people to support us, especially people in Germany. I believe they share our difficulties and challenge under the hardline suppression.
Well, helping you, what's that going to look like? Immigration that I asked you about, I mean, did you hear from the foreign minister today? Did you get a promise that it's going to be easier for Hong Kongers to come to Germany?
With yesterday's meeting with the foreign minister of Germany, I expressed the must for Germany government to send a clear message to President Xi. Sending troops or using martial law in Hong Kong must not be the way out. Free election is the only solution. At the same time, I also urge German government to stop the export license of those crowd control equipment, including rubber bullets and tear gas, that allowing police brutality become the life-threatening force in Hong Kong. I hope German government, after the short meeting yesterday with me, with the foreign minister, they could realize that Hong Kong political and economic freedom must be safeguarded not only by Hong Kong people, but that's also the responsibility of world leaders how to maintain the unique status of Hong Kong be the international financial center.
Okay, well, you say world leaders. What about U.S. President Donald Trump? You're going to the U.S. later this week. Are you expecting or are you hoping that Donald Trump is going to save Hong Kong from Beijing?
Save Hong Kong from Beijing. The major responsibility comes from Hong Kong people, not anyone else. But world leaders and also politicians around the world must realize that how Hong Kong is stand in the front line to be the frontier to confront the authoritarian suppression, just like the G7 summit issued a few weeks ago to show their support on Hong Kong government execute and recognize the existence of Sino-British Joint Declaration. The international treaty emphasizes Hong Kong people enjoy the right to have high degree of autonomy and Hong Kong people ruling Hong Kong. I hope U.S. government and bipartisan support can show to Hong Kong people.
Which leader of which power would you consider to be most useful to your cause?
I hope to get a conclusion after my whole trip and after next Saturday. Especially, I hope to schedule a meeting with government official and also bipartisan congressmen and senator at U.S. Yeah, I hope to let the people around the world to know that supporting Hong Kong or stand with Hong Kong is not the matter of left or right, it's the matter of right or wrong.
I want to ask you, you were arrested before you left Hong Kong to come here. We know that the foreign ministry in Beijing doesn't like what you have been saying here. You're going back to Hong Kong next weekend. Are you afraid of what's going to happen when you arrive in Hong Kong? Do you think you'll be arrested again?
President Xi Jinping is the one believe in authoritarian rule. We can't totally expect or predict he or his government will react rationally. That's why even facing the threat to be arrested again, and in fact I need to face the trial on 8th of November because of the prosecution from Hong Kong government, we will still continue our fight. And of course I will take the flight back to Hong Kong and let Hong Kong people to know that we never walk alone.
Joshua Wong, thank you. Well, the protests in Hong Kong are not reserved for young students like Joshua Wong. Pensioners and young people sometimes find themselves standing shoulder to shoulder in front of a police barricade.
Protesters call it full gear. With a construction helmet, gas mask and a pair of goggles, Ryan hits the street again and melts into the sea of black. Among Hong Kong protesters, he's known as a Yongmo, or one of the braves. The 19-year-old lies to his parents every time he goes out to protest. This time, he told them he's off to play football. Instead, he set a barricade, confronting the police.
Of course, it would be perfect if we didn't need to fight. It'd be most ideal to make the government concede with just peaceful, rational and non-violent actions. But the Hong Kong government has made us understand that being moderate and peaceful is useless.
As the sky turns dark, the tension grows. On the front lines, younger protesters are those who most often get injured when riot police disperse the crowds. But they're not without their defenders. This one from a whole different generation, Grandpa Wong. The 85-year-old is using his body as a shield.
Don't beat up the children. Please let them go home.
And he has someone there to lean on, 73-year-old Grandpa Chen.
When the police charge and the youngsters or citizens can't escape fast enough, we have to stand between them and block the police's advance to give citizens time to get away.
But their stern lectures often fall on deaf ears. Tonight, Ryan got shot in his thigh by rubber bullets. But he says he won't retreat. Ryan is done for the night, but the struggle he's joined for the future of Hong Kong appears far from over.